This is Radar for On the Radar Entertainment Blog, coming to you another edition of Movie Reviews Observations, number 158. So, the first movie that I watched was Spine of the Night. And I was wondering, it wasn't the first movie I watched, but one of the movies I watched this week, and I'm like, certified Rotten Tomatoes fresh. And it's like Joe Manganiello, Patton Oswalt, Lucy Lawless, and Richard E. Grant. I'm like, that's cool, but it's a cartoon. It's a graphic novel, and it's very graphic. Extreme nudity by some of the characters, complete straight-up gore and bloody intestines and body parts being all over the place. But it's a cartoon, they get away with it. And as someone wrote on this box, one of the sickest, coolest, most mind-bending animated films I've seen. And I was like, I fell asleep parts of it, but I'm like, not because it was boring, but I was tired. I'm like, this is a weird but really interesting movie. And I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. I would say, in terms of movies where it's basically you got this father, nepotism king, and he's trying to destroy the swamps, and there's a creature from the swamps, and there's all this other mythological stuff, and all these other characters. So, yeah, it was actually pretty cool. It was interesting. It's just, may not be for everybody, but I enjoyed it. I watched, actually, the first movie, Lockdown, with Anne Hathaway and '04. And it has the likes of Mindy Kaling, who I don't care for, Stefan Martin, who's interesting, Dule Hill, he's a good actor, and Ben Stiller had a brief role in sort of Ben Kingsley. And I'm thinking that this is more of a drama because it's two people who are dating each other and they decide to call it quits, but then the pandemic hits, and it's one of those movies that are filmed during the pandemic, about the pandemic, or the struggles of being at home with addiction and bad relationships and work and all this other stuff. And you're just like, okay, it's a drama where they got to deal with each other, so I don't know how it's a comedy. The movie then changes to being a heist movie halfway towards during the second half, and I'm just confused. Is this a comedy about is it a comedy, which a lot of you put, or is it a drama about them trying to be stuck together in the pandemic when when they don't want to be together, or is it a heist movie with them trying to steal stuff? So it was actually all over the place, and I was like, it was okay. I had a lot of good actors, but I'm sorry, Ben Kingsley and Ben Stiller, the two Bens, you wasted your time. Then my roommate and I watched the movie The Dry with Eric Bana, and this is certified fresh, and I get it. It was really cool. He's supposedly a federal agent cop, and he comes to the childhood funeral of one of his close friends, and by coming back, it brings back old memories of a teenager that he knew back in the day dying, and all the circumstances that were behind that, and all the circumstances behind this, and the community, half of it doesn't like him, and his friend's parents are like, we want you to use your expertise to look into it. So it's all about that, and reconnecting with people from his past, and dealing with old wounds, and dealing with trauma of the past. And I was like, it's actually pretty good. It's interesting. Eric Bana is the Hulk. And one of the actors in this movie is Ra's al Ghul from the Arrowverse. So I was like, that's cool. Got Ra's al Ghul from the Arrowverse and Eric Bana from one of the Hulk films. Yeah, it was just a pretty good movie. I liked it. Next movie that I watched, I'm going to preface this with this. I've seen a lot of bad movies. A lot of long, dragged-out, boring movies. I've seen a lot of cheesy action films, cheesy rom-coms, science fiction movies that are just dumb, bad children's movies that even children wouldn't like. And I've seen a lot of foreign films where I'm like, this is not a good movie. And people tell me that I'm not, cultured and everything. And I'm like, dude, this week I watched multiple foreign films. And one of them I really liked. It's not going to matter what language the movie's in. So this movie was called Titiane, and it's a French movie. And you look at the cover and you're like, flames and a car and a naked lady. You're like, ooh. And the description is that it's a woman with a titanium plate surgically fused to her skull after a car crash as a kid, is a car model, and she embarks on a wild and ultimately unpredictable journey that questions her assumptions about family, identity, and love, who she is, what family is, and what love is. So obviously, when you watch this movie, she's a brat, and that's why she got this stupid thing in her brain. But that was for 2 seconds. And they flash forward to the future where they said she's a car model, and I call it she's stripping for money on cars. And I've seen a movie where a girl is in love with a roller coaster and it gives her orgasm and she marries it. And I was like, at least that was 90 minutes. This movie was almost an hour and 50 minutes. And I think it's one of the most screwed up, most disgusting, and the dumbest and weirdest movie that I've ever seen in my life. You're like, okay, maybe she's a woman who's down in her dumps and this is where life has taken her. But then they have to add the whole she's pregnant by a car and her body's changing and she's leaking motor fluid and oil and her parents and her don't have never got along. And she then, is also queer. So they're like calling this a queer movie because she's dating men and women and sleeping with all of them and blah, blah, blah. But then they're like, it's a murder movie where she's killing all the men and women that she's sleeping with and so on and so on and so on. And she's on the run. And she pretends to be some firefighter's long-lost son and puts, tape over her to pretend she's not a woman, but how do you hide the fact that you're pregnant? And this dude decides to fully buy that it's his long-lost son, but his ex-wife doesn't. And it's just weird and freaking disgusting and a little bit torture and, horrific and, scarring. So I'm like, this is one of the most disgusting things and weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. And it's not that I'm not cultured or get it. It's just, why? Why was this a movie? Then I watched an actual foreign film that is really short and brief. My roommate's like, wow, that was quick. It was an hour and 27 minutes. It was called Golden Voices. It's half in Russian, half in Hebrew. And being a Jewish person who went to Jewish day school, I know a lot more Hebrew than most people in this world. So I don't really need subtitles for, most of the Hebrew. Obviously for the Russian. And I like that it's somewhat based on a true story. It's in the 90s where when the USSR collapsed, this couple, a lot of couples, left there and made Aliyah to Israel. They moved to Israel. And they're trying to find themselves, new work and how to navigate in this thing. But they had a long profession where they were. And they're adjusting to the fact that they can't actually do that where they live now. And they take different jobs. And it's an adventure between the husband and wife, their relationship, and their relationship in Israel. So it was a nice, I would say, cute, cutesy, clever, short, nice movie that you can watch, and it was very enjoyable. Could have been longer. It's one of the few times where I'm like, movies should be longer. Then I watched Aqua Teen Forever Plantism, and I'm talking someone who watched Aqua Teen Hunger Force when he was younger, and then they called it Unit Patrol Force 1, and Aqua something something, and then Aqua Teen Forever, and Aqua whatever. And it's one of those shows where when it's on cable, the cable networks can just show 8 if they want. They can show 10, 15, 20 episodes. Or they could do what TBS does with an American Dad, where one time they showed 30 episodes or 40 episodes in a 5 or 6 month period. And they're like, yep, then we're off the air for 2 years. So this is the type of show that went off the air for a year. And I'm checked in by accident with Unit Patrol 1, Aqua something something, and Aqua Teen Forever. So I can admit, I haven't watched every episode, so I'm not super familiar with the new theme song or some other elements to the show. But it's got all these interesting voice actors. Dana Schneider's back, and they got Smeagol, and they had Tim Robinson and Lauren Holt, and some other people who, and they had Sean Kemp as himself in the movie. So it was interesting. Basically, it wasn't until Unit Patrol Force 1 where they actually weren't just chilling around and doing dumb stuff. They're actually trying to save the day and using their powers. So I thought that was cool. Some interesting, Elon Musk, super genius characters, some aliens. They had the people from Mars ruining the movie and all this other stuff. Carl was his usual himself. Meatwad was adorable. And of course, Shake was the selfishness and Frylock was a genius, like always. So yeah, I thought that was good. And it's like watching an episode, but a TV movie episode. So it's barely an hour and 10 minutes. Then I watched Cyrano with Peter Dinklage, Haley Bennett, Kelvin Harrison Jr., and Ben Mendelsohn and whatnot. And it's a musical. So basically, Peter Dinklage is playing some younger version of himself where he's in the military and he's high up there. And I think it's in England, but he doesn't have a British accent whatsoever. It's kind of confusing. And he's a long-term friendship with this young woman, Haley Bennett, who he has had a crush on for years, in love with her. He's a poet. He's an author. Everyone thinks he's amazing, but some people don't. And he's always down on himself because he's a short person, and he doesn't think anyone likes that. And he decides to, even though it hurts him in love because he loves her, that the man that she loves is a soldier in his unit, and he looks after him and ghostwrites all the messages and all this other stuff. And it's I love her, but I want her to be happy. But then there's this perverted old man who's the general, whatever, or the king, whatever, he can do whatever he wants. So there's another suitor, and it was them singing and dancing and a lot of this other stuff. And I was it was okay. Peter Dinklage did an amazing job in this specific role. I liked it. Him taking on 10 guys, all this other stuff, all this cool swords fights. It was cool. I liked it. But again, almost 2 hours long. It's like three people interested in the same woman, and she's not that great looking to begin with. So I will say the best movies that I watched this week were most likely The Dry, based on like live action, and then you can tie Aqua Teen Hunger Force Forever because I love that show, with Spine of the Night. It's probably the three best I watched, and then you put Peter Dinklage's performance in Cyrano in the middle, and then the Hebrew, Israeli-Russian movie Golden Voices was Night is Clever, and then I would just ignore Lockdown unless you're really obsessed with these actors, and burn this from ever making it to the United States anymore. Burn every copy in America, ban it. Never have this movie out. Thanks again for listening to another edition of Movie Reviews Observations number 158. For On the Radar Today blog, I'm Radar. See you guys next time.